Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a breaking update regarding the situation in Eastern Europe. A 30-day ceasefire has been agreed to by Ukraine. The deal will now be presented to Russia. Marco Rubio, the ceasefire talks in Saudi Arabia, speaking on this. Rubio, Waltz, and others holding the talks with Ukraine. We don't know the exact details. Where does this put the minerals deal? We're not sure, but it does seem like at this point there is some type of agreement with Ukraine that will be presented to Russia, and it's a 30-day ceasefire deal. Let's hear what Marco Rubio had to say.
Today we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable and accounts for their interests, their security, their ability to prosper as a nation. I want to personally we both want to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, His Majesty, for hosting us, for making this possible. They've been instrumental in this process, and we're very grateful to them for hosting us here today. And hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians. And we hope that they'll say yes, to peace. The ball's now in their court. And but again, the president's objective here is, number one, above everything else, he wants the war to end. And I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope the Russians will reciprocate.
And so, yes, the timeline would be the ceasefire, which is this agreement's been agreed to by Ukraine. Russia would agree to the ceasefire. There'd be a negotiating window, and then hopefully there will end up being a peace deal. There could be some major hangups in terms, maybe not necessarily the annexation of land in Eastern Europe, possibly the Donbass region in particular, which we think Russia will most certainly want, connect to the peninsula, the Crimean Peninsula. They're going to want that land, and the only way that the Ukrainians are going to be able to get it back would be through NATO aggression, which obviously is not going to happen now under Trump. I don't think it was going to happen under Biden or Harris or anyone. They're all talk no action, which is good because we don't want escalation that leads to a World War III. But still, so we'll see what happens in terms of this deal being presented to Russia. This is not the peace deal. It is just the ceasefire. It would open a negotiating window, and we would have some type of, we would presume, security guarantees for Ukraine. We know during the talks in 2022, I did a video on it a few days ago, talking about the idea of Ukraine de-arming themselves and demilitarizing, which obviously they do not want to do, considering there is the threat of a reinvasion by Russia. There's a lot of entanglement in terms of the United States involved potentially in a minerals deal with both Russia and Ukraine. A lot of people saying maybe it's good to just stay out of the region completely and don't have a deal with either of them. The reason for the minerals deal with Ukraine was for the United States to get our money back for the amount of money we've invested in this war. There's numerous reports. Now Ukrainians are saying, oh, it's only like 60 or 70 billion. No, I mean, Trump did say it's around 300 billion. That's because he rounds up, but it's still like 160, 170 billion dollars the United States has poured into it. They can't find like 40 or 50 billion. There's some serious corruption problems happening in Ukraine. The point of this, though, is this is really the first step. The second step would be Russia agreeing to the ceasefire, and then the big peace deal after that. So this is a good first step. We're not sure, is the minerals deal happening? Should the United States have involvement in that region? Would it require the United States to have involvement in that region for there to even be a peace deal in the first place? Otherwise, Ukraine might not agree, because Ukraine still does have full support, or at least a lot of support from Europe, with two big players like France and the UK being behind Ukraine in this war. Again, a lot of that, like I've discussed in previous videos, is posturing for a more positive peace deal for the Ukrainians so they have leverage. That's why they wanted to do this minerals deal. By the way, Zelensky officially apologized yesterday for the White House visit, and that just goes to show you, you can see a lot of people within Ukraine, and certainly a lot of liberals in the United States, said Trump acted very badly. It was the independents that came out and said, no, Trump's our president. We love what he did. He stood up for us. And so that's why Trump got just rave reviews for that White House visit. And so did J.D. Vance. And there's like a 70% approval rating on that White House visit for Trump. But when it comes to this, Zelensky knows he needs the United States behind him. We'll see if the minerals deal ends up happening. This ceasefire agreement, though, by Ukraine, it's a step in the right direction. It's not the peace deal. Russia still needs to sign on to it, and I'm sure there are going to be some things that are going to have to be negotiated. Both of these countries are going to have to feel a little shorted in terms of the peace deal. That's just how peace deals work. You're not going to get everything you want And Russia, depending on the type of leverage they perceive themselves to have, they might have a hard time signing on to a peace deal. It depends. And that leverage is based off of Ukraine still having support. The problem with Ukraine right now in terms of their lack of leverage is just the lack of manpower with how long this war has gone on. And we see the videos coming out of Ukraine with all the women dancing and there's no dudes. It's very sad. And then you've also got, I mean, they're going around in trucks taking young men and forcing them onto the front lines. That's a sign right there. This war needs to end. And the reason we say the war is, or at least people are needlessly dying, is because the front line has barely moved. The adults in the room need to negotiate this out. We have to stop this. We understand it's not ideal. It's not perfect. We cannot guarantee that Putin will not have another offensive at some point, but we can lower the temperature by having a better relationship with Putin and the Russians. And that's why Trump is doing this. And he's trying to do a potential deal with Russia, possibly an economic deal. That's what Putin originally said. Why don't you do a minerals deal with us? We've got more minerals now, especially now that we've got the Donbass region. Again, we would presume that would be annexed. This is just what's going to happen. I said, and I've explained this for like a year. People are saying, well, no, the regions are going to be independent. Maybe they will be independent, but they're certainly not going to go back to Ukraine. It's not possible unless there's a NATO offensive, which would lead to escalation, obviously, because it's that NATO troops going up against Russia, which Donald Trump and the United States vehemently oppose. And there's no way NATO, without the United States support, would do that, even though they posture and they talk this big game. It's all posturing to try and give Ukraine more leverage in a peace deal, so Russia can't just say, give us X, Y, and Z. You've got no army. They can say, well, we still got NATO behind us. So, listen, this is like step 1A, right? You get one of the countries to agree to a ceasefire to start the peace talk negotiations, but you need the Russians to as well. And hopefully, this is bullish news. This is good. We want to see this. And we need the details. We need the mineral deal. Is that happening? Is it not happening? There's really conflicting reports on whether or not the U.S. should be involved in minerals, within Ukraine. People saying it's not worth it to be involved and entangled in that region, but Ukraine might want it. It might be better for Ukraine, even though the United States would be extracting minerals from their land. We would be involved, and there's a perceived threat, that we would have to deal with in terms of Russia maybe reinvading, and it's like, oh, now it's on us to protect our minerals. Is that really a thing? I don't know. I mean, it just depends what the peace deal ends up being and the verbiage of it. It was very important. I think Trump mainly wants the European countries, who, by the way, are doing exactly what Trump wanted, which is go through a rearmament period. They're like, we're going to show Trump, we're going to spend more and invest more on defense. Well, yes, that's the whole point. You look at NATO, the budget, that's what Trump was harping on. The United States does so much heavy lifting. It's like they're showing Trump by proving his point. But this is really good stuff. You've got Canada so this is going to continue to happen, right, with Canada, to where they're going to dig their feet in. They're going to say this is a trade war. We're both going to suffer because of it. They want to have the maximum impact. They say they're going to shut the electricity off of Republican states. They're making all these threats, Canada is. And one interesting thing I'd like to point out on the Canada situation, I was looking at some of the comments from some of the top Canadians, the influencers there. There seems to be this galvanization around the idea that they want to protect Canada. And somebody mentioned, they said, well, there's all this stuff happening against the United States and all this protest, and you're taking U.S. products off your shelves. Why not the same energy for the Chinese, who have just hit you with tariffs just like the United States? It's like a double whammy. Those are two huge adversaries. Well, the United States is a partner, but those are two huge countries in terms of trade. And they said because Canada didn't threaten to invade us and take us over. It's the idea of Trump joking with Trudeau as the governor, the 51st state, things like that. And I just wondered to myself, your country's already been invaded by India. Why are you worried about the United States? And I'm not even like trying to be funny or kidding. This whole idea of, oh, we're Canadians. Isn't the idea of being a Canadian, doesn't it lose steam when you import all these third world immigrants and just like that, they become citizens and now they're Canadians too? So it's this double standard liberalism. You see how you use liberalism? They try and galvanize now, just like conservatives would, and say, this is our country. We're not going to let anyone invade it. Your country, really? Why are you accepting all these immigrants? You're destroying the fabric of and the culture of your country, but you accept all these immigrants. But now, if Trump says something about, oh, you know, it's a joke, whatever. I mean, the thing is with Canada, I want to have a good relationship with Canada. There's some things that Trump does that, in terms of the trade war, maybe it's a little bit much, but we galvanize around Trump, and he is our leader. And so we will support Trump in this situation. And listen, we know that the United States, I've outlined it, we've got way more leverage than Canada. So you want to do this thing where you posture and you want to shut our electricity off, it's going to get a lot worse for you. It's going to get way worse for you than it is for us. They want us to suffer and say we quit. No, I don't think Trump wants to do that. I mean, we'll see. Maybe Trump will see the economy and say, no. We've got huge news, though. If this is real, inflation rates are declining. They're saying the inflation right now is 1.35%. Trueflation, that's even more accurate in terms of a measurement than the inflation rate. Wow. If they don't lower the interest rates, we're going to have to abolish the Fed. The interest rates need to be lowered on March 19th. Seriously. With what's happened to the stock market, if these inflation rates are correct and it's around 2%, or it's at least going down, it's going in the right direction. I mean, listen, this is very, very bullish for the future economy of the United States. If Trump's already starting to get the inflation down with where the stock market is right now, people say it's not in a good place. Well, yes, we're going to lower the interest rates. They have to, because the inflation's down and the stock market's down. You have to stimulate the economy, and we've got all the tax breaks coming. And I just heard the Doge dividend is coming as well. Wow. And we've got the war ending. Yep. But see, there's all this negative stuff about Trump. You just got to look deeper. Just look a little bit deeper. There's a lot of positive stuff happening right now. Listen, we'll see with the ceasefire. We don't know. Russia's going to have to agree to it, and then we negotiate. We'll see if they agree to it. But either way, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Links to that's always in the description.